Massive welcome to our very special guest, Bobby Banerjee. Thank you very much for coming on the counter offer.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really good to be part of it.
Awesome. So, as you know, I've done you an introduction, but I'm keen to know, and I ask every guest this because I think it's a really interesting question. What is your why? What is Bobby's why?
There's a few of those. So absolutely. My professional why is so what I do, as I say, I'm a recruitment trainer and I've been looking at quite a few things within the psychometric space to hire recruiters. The reason behind that is because I want to make recruitment better. And I want my kind of infinite purpose is that I want to leave recruitment a better place than when I found it. And I found it 11, 12 years ago. I'd been made redundant a couple of times. You just fall into recruitment from it. So I used to train people that hadn't quite done so well in life. So they'd been on the anti-terrorism register. They needed help with child and adult mental health services in the UK, getting them into the idea of wanting to go to work, which is a real persuasive kind of argument as well as a training thing. So yeah, funding gets cut quite a bit within the apprenticeship and the kind of getting back to workspace. So ended up in recruitment, started off at Computer Futures, one of the S3 brands, kind of had a horrible first year. My manager left within about 2 or 3 months of me starting, had some of the basic induction training and was kind of left to it and felt a little bit kind of like, oh God, how do I do this? And so a lot of what I do is born out of the lived experience that I've had, hopefully learning from the mistakes that I made, trying to build a market and not doing a very good job to start off with, and then seeing how you build on better over time. So I started off doing data and BI. Then I did IT infrastructure and did quite well in IT infrastructure. So I was a fairly consistent biller without being amazing because there were some amazing people at S3.
Oh, I love that. And you know what? There's two things there that you just said that really kind of strike a chord with me. First of all, I'm a massive believer. And for anyone listening, I truly believe that sometimes the best trainers and the people who can really impart knowledge in the best way are not the people who found it easier, not just in recruitment, but in anything. I always found the best teachers, maybe the ones who maybe they were okay, but they found some things a bit difficult, but they overcame them. Would you say that that was you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you haven't had anything to overcome, especially in the jobs that we have in recruitment, if you can't handle an objection, which seems to be the biggest thing we do training on still. Oh, totally. People talk about BD training, but actually it ends up being how do we handle the objections that we face? And like I say, it's a lot of fun, but it is the main thing that we do. So if you haven't overcome some of those issues, how can you effectively impart that knowledge onto other people? And one of the key things that Shane and I do in our training is that we get on the phones ourselves. So even on Tuesday, I was doing a candidate call in a market that I've never done before and just wanted to show them how you go about kind of qualifying a candidate, even when they're quite difficult, even though the candidate was really, really nice. And so it was almost really bad that I felt that I was hoping for a load of objections that they could throw my way. But yeah, unfortunately, not quite worked out how I wanted it to, but still got the conversation started with people.
Yes, I love that. And I actually think if anyone is listening to this and they have a manager or they have a coach or they're looking for a coach to help them with sales calls, ask them, do you get on the phone with us? Because I'm the same as you. I used to get on the phone with all of we used to call it sales chamber. Chamber is such a horrible word. I don't know why I call it that now.
Panic room.
But look, people used to ask for it. So it clearly had a new meaning. But I would make a call, they would make a call. We'd talk about it. I would make a call, they would make a call. And a lot of people thought, oh, wow, she's such a good manager and trainer for doing this. And I was like, should not all managers do this? Do you think they should? I do.
I do, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
so yeah, one of the reasons I got into that, and well, I hope he ends up listening. I ended up having a manager that came up from London called Paul Knox, who's quite high up at S3 and then ended up, I think, Cognitive Group down in London. And he closed a candidate, well, for one of my colleagues, and we all listened in, and it was just incredible to listen to. Just the way he naturally went in and closed a candidate, really, really simply handled a load of objections, and he made it sound really conversational and really kind of fluid. And that's when I realized I didn't think I was going into training at that point, but if I was ever in a position to mentor, I'd want to make sure I could do it myself.
I love that. And so many people do learn, as we know, by reflecting. But there's one thing that I know is the biggest issue from clients, from candidates, from managers in the recruitment industry right now. And like you, I am so passionate about making sure that people stay in the industry and they don't sort of get swept up in the wrong kind of process. Finding the best recruiters as recruiters should not be difficult, should it? But if I could wave a magic wand and create that A-grade recruiter for every client, I would be a billionaire, right? So I like to think I'm pretty good, but nobody out there has cracked it. So I'm curious to know, what advice would you give to companies who know that they need to grow their recruitment, their recruiters? What advice would you give to them to be successful before they do anything else?
Yeah. So there's about three or four things. Number one, define your process. So what is your recruitment process going to be? Who is getting involved in that process? Because what we generally tend to see in lots of recruitment businesses, just it so happens that that person that's supposed to be interviewing is out that day. And then someone who's ill prepared to interview is then kind of thrust in last minute to have a conversation with one of your people. So make sure that you've itemized what your process is going to be, how many stages it's going to take, and what is involved in each stage. Then once you look at what's involved in each stage, think about actually what do I need to find out from each person to make sure that either at a basic level or an experience level, that they have the right behaviors, attitudes, and will and skill to do the role. So just the
Behavior,
conventional.
attitude, will, and skill. I love that. Behavior, attitude, will, and skill. Remember that. I
Yeah,
will remember.
I know. I might have to do it. Skill, will, attitude, behavior. So you got swab. I mean, that's about as much I could go
Swab.
with it. But yeah, so what we tend to work with when we work, so we've done quite a lot of work with internal recruitment companies that look to hire internally, but not necessarily for recruiters. And identifying what their key competencies and behaviors are that they're looking for really important. So once you've identified the process, identify what you're looking for. What you're looking for is a mix of different behaviors. And it's not, does this person have the right background? Because I've not noticed that there's one particular background that works well in recruitment. Some of the best people I have seen have been, one was a roofer, one was an ex-footballer, one is done the university thing, didn't know what they wanted to do, and ended up in recruitment fairly early on. One was a journalist. So
Ooh.
background means very, very little to me.
Yes. And okay, if I can just stop you there very quickly on that, there are a lot of people, I don't know, you'll know more about this than me, but a lot of people who think, I've tried that. We've tried the journalist, we've tried the grad, we've tried the roofer, and it didn't work. Or we've tried someone from, I don't know, the health and social care sector,
Yeah,
and it
or
and
we
it
try
doesn't
sport
work.
people, we try these things, whatever that looks
And
like.
we get stuck. We get stuck in our opinion of what does and doesn't work. But from what you're saying is it doesn't matter what background they're from, right?
I don't think so. I mean, what I love about our industry is that you can be absolutely anyone and you can do really well in our industry. What I don't like is that you could be absolutely everyone with the wrong behaviors and the wrong attitudes to recruitment, the wrong swab, and you can ruin the industry by not being able to get back to your candidates, by having really poor, unethical processes. So the idea is look at the behaviors that you're looking for, not necessarily the background. I mean, just to give something away for free, one of the big things I look for when I look for trainees is who learns best from feedback. Because if they make a mistake, great. I love the idea of people making mistakes. I have a really simple methodology, fail, learn, apply, and then win. So if you can use that flawless technique, essentially, if you learn from the process, what you learn is really important. So it's all very well that you have a bad sales call or you have a bad candidate call. That's fine. What do you do better next time? And how do you demonstrate that you're going to do better next time? Those are the things that are exciting to me. So
And
how can you get that?
mindset comes into
Yeah,
that, right?
right. Absolutely. So because a lot of people talk about, we'll talk about drive and ambition a little bit later. I'll talk about some of the earlier skills I look for. So with regards to the kind of skills that you're looking for, identify what they are. Like we were talking about off air, if you're looking for someone who has good communication skills, define what that needs to look like. Yeah, having good communication skills can be one of many things. It could be being able to speak properly or speak in a persuasive manner to clients. It could be that you just want people to be able to write emails effectively that don't have any spelling mistakes.
Mm.
Or I worked with a defense client who need their communication skills were to be able to negotiate with foreign government
Yeah.
and the skills that are needed to do that. So communication styles can be many different things. So actually defining what those things look like and looking at.
And being careful, right, how you define it, because I talk a lot about diversity on the podcast, and I have fallen into the trap before thinking, oh, well, Bobby's our best biller. What does Bobby do? Let's write our competencies around Bobby. But actually, Bobby is great in Bobby's way. There might be someone else, right, who comes into the company who
Totally.
can offer something that he doesn't offer. So how would you suggest, and I know we're getting really deep here, but when they're putting together the competencies, so say I've decided I want someone who has that drive, I want a good communicator, how do they define that without thinking of a person?
Yeah, so what we've done is So we'll obviously come on to the happy test, but we've created a bit of a psychometric around how to identify the right personalities and behaviors within your teams and how to then find those people within, to replicate that using situational judgment testing. But identify all the people that matter in your business. And so, yeah, that could be the top billers, but their skill sets now are very different to what they had before. It's a case of, yeah, identifying what those skills and what those behaviors are, but also looking at your kind of subject matter experts in candidate qualification, in client development, in account development, and taking some of those rising stars of your business and take some of their behaviors as well. Because then you'll get a bit of a rounded viewpoint as to, actually, what profiles make a lot of sense. Actually, there's about 3 or 4 that could make sense for our business, not just the one or the two, or certainly as a business owner, my skill set probably is very different now to what it was when I was a kind of a senior consultant and a manager. It's just identifying those behaviors and then being able to create a process and a plan to find those behaviors out. Once you've then found those things, and then, like I say, we'll talk about this is where I'm coming to drive an ambition as well, is create a set of key questions that are consistent within your business to find out those behaviors. So a
Yeah, give me an
particular
example. Give me a really good
totally.
example.
Yeah, so I'll use that learning from feedback as an example. And I have a competency interview structure that if people at the end of this call want to talk through, I'll happily talk through them. So, for example, with the learning from feedback behavior that I'm looking for, questions can be like, tell me about a time where you've hit a target that you set and what did you learn from it? But also, conversely, can you tell me about a time when you've had some constructive feedback from someone within your organization or within your kind of family, whatever it is? What did you learn and how did you respond to that feedback?
Love
And
that.
funny enough, getting people to go from their lived experience is so much more powerful than us going, if you had this, what would you do? Because I don't know about you, but hypotheticals mean nothing to me. I don't think about what could happen. I think about what has happened before and how that could translate. Past performance is a great indicator of future behavior.
I love that. I've got a one that I always use, which is quite similar to that, is tell me about a bad day, like the worst day that you had in recruitment. What happened? And then see how they turn that into a positive? Or do they say, oh, it was awful and I really want to leave recruitment and actually I don't want to be in recruitment? Or do they say it was awful, but I picked myself up again? And those situation kind of
Absolutely.
questions.
And there's probably a few different ways in which you can handle that. You can go for
Yeah.
a walk, you can have a conversation with a colleague. And funny enough, that's part of our testing to see what they would do in those scenarios. But yeah, and it was even, I was going to say, and being able to identify what the key 6, 7 competencies are and being able to draw from lived experience. Because as you quite rightly say, we don't want people that have not had any challenges. If anything, the one thing I'd say, recruitment is for people who know how to overcome adversity. And so if you can understand where their adversity is that they've overcome, you can then come in, what is that little chip on their shoulder that they have? Because that's the drive and ambition, isn't it? Yeah, totally. I've seen lots of business owners who started off as a trainee with me, and their main thing was that their friends were successful and they weren't. And
Yes.
that is an incredible driver for success.
Oh my
If
gosh.
they've seen previous success and they're not seeing it anymore, that is a great driver.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Bobby, I'm going to tell you something. Tell me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm starting to learn the older I get is that more and more of the top, absolutely exceptional performers, like you say, maybe a chip on the shoulder, but they have some element of insecurity that they want to prove to either themselves or to others. And I was that person too. I think we've all got our story. But one thing that I'm noticing more and more are companies who they're always trying new ways for the interview process, right? So
Anything that's shiny, right?
role play scenario, role play scenario. So I've done this many times and I've had people who have really wowed me and then they can't actually do it on the job and the vice versa. People who crack under a role play scenario interview, but then go into the job and they're absolutely smashing it. What are your thoughts on role
And
play?
role plays are great. I love them. I think that there's a real place for them. I think the challenge you have is that how do you use the role play to be successful for what you want to get out of it? Because I can learn, if, for example, the old adage that Jordan Belfort came out with, the whole sell me this pen. Now everyone probably has a way forward to answer that and therefore has rehearsed that thing. Whereas if you have a role play, and it doesn't matter what the scenario is, you give them some time to formulate what they're kind of, I know you used to work in the performing arts, learn their lines, get them to work out how they would approach that particular thing, let them go method on that. But the most important thing is, again, how do I get them to learn from that experience?
Mm.
So what I do with the role play is, it doesn't really matter what they say first time. I then give them some feedback to say, well, this, and this could have been improved. And then next time, I'm really involved in the conversation because I want to see whether they have taken on board what I've said.
Mm.
That's when a role play works for me. But I guess there's also other challenges from a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging perspective, in that some people don't respond well to role plays. If you're looking to make sure that, your recruitment business is a home to people that suffer from neurodiversity and who are on the spectrums, because we're all on various spectrums when it comes to autism, ADHD. It's not a binary thing. We have certain levels. It's whether we are low, medium, high, or very high.
Yeah.
And so allowing yourself to go, actually, does this help that person succeed?
Yes.
And you could come up with lots of different strategies. And some of the things that we do is so we work with a workplace psychologist who predominantly specializes in neurodiversity. And Liz is brilliant because she's able to identify how these things work. And she's working with incredible companies to help that on their journey. And so we've tapped into her knowledge to go, well, how can we make that
Mm.
suitable for the world of recruitment? Because at the end of the day, we can be charging some really high fees, we can be looking for some really interesting behaviors, and we're not necessarily getting the right people because we haven't channeled the right methods.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting and a great asset to have, because there is so much neuroscience behind how we are and how we adapt. So loving all that, loving talking about the role play scenario. The other thing that people always ask me, and clients have asked me this, do we do 2 interviews, 3 interviews? How quickly should we do it? Now, as an observer, right, as someone on the recruitment lines, I see the clients that do it the quickest are the most successful. But then I'm 2 parts to this question, because I've also seen clients where they really draw it out and they give an assessment and a role play in advance. They lose quite good candidates on the way. The client's argument is, well, if they don't want to work for us, then they won't do the role play. If they want to work for us enough, they'll prepare the assessment, they'll prepare the role play. The clients that are doing it well, I've seen, are the ones that actually put them into the role play scenario in the interview without preparing them. They almost kind of say, it's not really important, but let's just go into this scenario. So they don't have time to think about it. They just perform on the spot. So I guess, yeah. How long should the process take, and how much should they be given to prepare in advance, do you think?
You've got 2 ways forward with this. So funny enough, every group of trainees that I did induction training with, I asked them to design their perfect recruitment process, because they talked through what was good, what wasn't so good about their process that they had, whether the recruitment company they entered. And it usually is somewhere between 1 and 3 kind of stages. So it depends on how your internal process works. But if you have a TA function, then by all means, that should really be the first stage interview. And it shouldn't just be a generic run through the CV. There should be the best recruiters that I see and the best recruiters that I train are the ones charging 25, 30, 35%. And the reason that they're able to do so is they delve deeper than other people. So when you're looking to hire, you shouldn't be cutting corners. You should be looking at it and going, right, I need to spend a lot of time grilling these people based on what I've seen on their CV. And instead of, obviously billings are great. For example, if you're looking to hire salespeople or experienced recruiters, billings are great. But if your best year was 2021, that thing comes with a pinch of salt, because that was a global boom year. Everyone is saying that it was the best year on record. So the key thing is, again, as you quite rightly pointed to earlier, Susanna, is tell me about the challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them. The questions we should be asking at that first stage is, tell me about your most complex client. Tell me about how you turn that client around from a potential challenge to a customer, because
Yeah.
that's exciting. No
Yeah.
one wants me to say, hey, I've just had really easy people that have just had markets to go to and they've billed £500,000. What they really want to hear is, right, tell me about someone who is underperforming and how has your coaching helped them get to the level that they want to get to. And
Yeah.
then I can start talking about several people that have been on performance improvement plans, whatever that looks like, and helping them get to those different levels. No one wants to know how I've had it easy having really easy training sessions.
Yeah,
So the
that's so
same
true.
thing applies, that actually talk about the good part, the good and the bad in that interview process. Tell me about how things have gone well. Tell me about how things have gone badly, because everyone's rehearsing when things go well.
Yes. And you
No
can build
one's,
an
no one's
honest relationship if you are able to be honest. You're already showing your vulnerabilities and showing them a bit of you, and people want to know the real you. They don't want to know the, I love that. Now, one thing that, I mean, I could talk about that all day. Like I said, we could do a whole
Mm.
episode on the interview process.
Oh,
But
yeah, that's the problem, right?
I see, I'm a big believer because I also see companies onboarding people, and
Mm.
I've got a soft spot for smaller companies. I have got a massive soft spot for smaller companies, but there's more pressure for the smaller companies that I find,
Yeah,
especially in
exactly.
recruitment. And a lot of them either give candidates too long or they decide too quickly that someone's not going to work out. What do you
Yeah.
think the time should be that I make a decision whether this recruiter is going to be successful or not? How long should I give them before I say, no, they need to go?
Yeah, so I've done a bit of, well, essentially a LinkedIn poll on exactly this. And I asked a really simple question of, how long did it take you to get recruitment? And I'm going to see if I can get the results of that because it was the poll I ran a little while ago. So I don't know whether it's on there. But yeah, the results were staggering.
Really?
People, because funny enough, people that say within 1 to 3 months were either, and this could be me, be contentious, but recruitment business owners that maybe haven't remembered how their experience was, and people who are less than 6 months that think that they know it. But the people that I'd noticed that were high performers and had had longer tenure through the world of recruitment were people that had actually said that it was 6 months plus
Really?
before they really got what recruitment was. I mean, I think I put a bit of a jokey one in that I still haven't figured it out yet. And funny enough, the people that were on that one were 10 years plus.
Really? That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
That
So,
had the kind of mental fortitude to go, yeah, maybe I still haven't got it figured out because 2023 threw up some different challenges to 2021 and 2022. 2024 is throwing up even more challenges that are different to each year. So whilst we've seen lots of these markets, I think people still don't think they know it all. And those people are the ones that are really doing well.
yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? I think from what you're saying, then, should we, in our sort of private meeting today, which is not so private, decide that it should be somewhere between 6 and 9 months
I
from
think,
when you
I
onboard
think
someone?
I think within 3 to 6 months, you will know whether they're starting to build the right behaviors. And what I'm not necessarily looking for is whether they get recruitment. It's have they demonstrated the right behaviors and right competencies? So the idea, what you should really be doing is setting a competency plan and understanding what people should be able to do by a certain time frame. So it's almost like a little contract between you, the business, and the employee to be able to say, actually, this is what I expect from you. And these are
Yeah.
my minimum expectations to be able for you to pass your probation or whatever that looks like. Because it can't be deals. Because some people will do lots of deals because of the nature of their market. Some people will do no deals because they're having to build out a market from scratch. So
Yes.
I think placements is a really poor method of determining initial competency because all we want to do is determine future competency.
Yeah.
And I know that may be contentious because obviously deals what makes the world go round. But what we need to look at is could they be getting deals?
Yes.
Have they shown that they're doing the right things to build client relationships, to host meetings with candidates and clients alike? Can they qualify a candidate properly and understand where the commercial opportunity is for them to be, reverse marketed, sold into, whatever, sell backs, whatever the terminology is that people use. But I want to take a candidate and do I know that they're good enough to go to 10 clients? And can
Yes.
I have a conversation with 10 clients? If I see that and I see really good evidence of that, they will do well in the job, regardless of whether they've done deals as yet. If you're going to use deals, which obviously are a fine measure of performance, have context to it. And I think having your KPIs, having everything with a bit of context to it is way more important than just saying, I want this to happen.
Yes. So true. Is this something, if I'm a company and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, do you know what? I want to create this, but I have not got the time. I'm one of those people, Bobby. I know these
Yeah.
things are really important. And I've been in a company before where I've known that I need to create it, but I am not going to find the time to do it. If I'm one of those leaders and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking it, is that something that you have facilities to help them
Yeah,
with?
so I mean, I don't think I've even said this, but yeah, I help recruitment companies create onboarding plans. I've got sample boarding plans for experienced and new new recruiters, so that people can get a bit of a sense of actually these are the people that I need to plug in. These are the things that I need to cover, and this is what is going to make someone feel like they are part of the business from day one, and making sure that those first 90 days are covered really well. In all honesty, I dread to think how many academies between Shane and I we've run for various customers, even over the last few years. And what we've noticed is there is no set pattern. that people go for. And I think that there possibly should be. So what we've done with a client I've been working with this week is we've actually drip fed their academy in. So what we're saying is consultants need to be able to qualify candidates effectively and then take those candidates to market. That's all we need them to do for the first month. So
Nice.
the training has been geared towards that. The metrics have been geared towards that. Because what ends up happening is we do these 5-day academies that are that are lovely and all that kind of stuff. But the amount of stuff that people take away is probably about three things.
Yeah, we can all
Not
relate
three
to
things
that.
per day, three things. I remember having, I hadn't qualified a job yet. I did job qualification training within 4 weeks of me being a recruiter. Now, what was the point of that? Because I pulled my first job 4 months later and I had to revisit it.
Yes. Yeah.
So in essence,
Especially if you learn by doing, right? And if you're that type
exactly.
of learning style, then that is going to be really hard 4 months
And a
later.
vast and a larger majority of the people that I've worked with have been kinesthetic learners, the people that learn by
Mm,
doing. Not
mm,
many people nowadays learn by listening or seeing. That
yeah.
visual or auditory learning isn't huge. I mean, it's the level of which you learn. So auditory, we listen to podcasts, so you might take away two or three things from this podcast today that strike a chord with you. But it's how you then try it out and then you fail, or you try it out and then you succeed, that you actually learn from.
Yeah.
And so it's how you go about developing those things. And like I say, I can happily consult and have been consulting with businesses on how to make those first 90 days count.
Yeah.
Those first 3 months, make sure that they have their competency assessments, because what should be happening with the training that is being delivered is there should be some testing happening, not just here's some training, bye, I've earned my money. There should be some follow up, there should be some accountability.
Yeah.
And so what we do with our groups is that we have those sessions on a Friday, give them time to catch up, and then hand over to the managers to say, have these chats with your people, see what's worked well, see what hasn't worked well, see what thing you're learning over this week. Because then that starts to build an environment where everyone feels like they can learn, not just your newbies, not just your managers, which are the only two people that seemingly get training in a recruitment business, but there's people who are 12 months plus who, everyone thinks that they should know it all and therefore get no training. And actually
Yes.
it's with them, the performance coaching is really powerful. So I've been doing a load of performance coaching sessions recently, and those people are just going, oh my God, I forgot how to do that. Thanks for reminding me. They've done it and it's yielded results.
What they think they don't need to know, they find out. I love that. And the other thing,
Yeah, because
actually, yeah, I was going to say the other thing that I really like about you and the way that you do this is you're not, oh, here's my training course, off you go. You are continuously on a mission to try and help recruiters be better in their roles. You're not just saying, oh, this is what we do. And that's all part of this new assessment that you've created, right? Can you tell us a bit more
yeah,
about the assessment?
yeah, totally. Yeah, of course I can. So at the moment, what we've done is we've identified a set of behaviors that we've put into three groups, and whether we're trying to work out from the British Psychological Society what we can call those groups, because we want to do it the right way. We don't want to cut corners. And so we've identified three traits of recruiters. So there's a proactivity element, there's a relationship driven element, and there's a strategic element. And so what we've done is create a set of questions that have been of everyday hazards and everyday scenarios that recruiters will face, and see their reaction points to them. We've put a few different types of response, and luckily you filled this out so you can tell us it from a user experience. And then what we've done is been able to weight those questions to those three kind of recruiter types, and then you can kind of benchmark those recruiter types against the things that you're seeing in the business. So what we try to do is allow recruitment businesses to hire people that have similar behaviors to people in their business, but without having to think about where they've come from. You could almost run blind CVs to them as long as they filled this out in their way. What it then allows you to do is ask some of those behavioral questions. So,
Yes.
oh, you told me that you'd build out a market by doing this, this, and this. Tell me about that. Talk me through what you would do in this market. Tell me about what the challenges are that you think you would face, and how do you think that you'd overcome them to build that marketplace?
Yeah.
Which is a way more powerful question to tell me what you did in your last job,
And
which is what we
also
do.
people who think, well, actually, I'm really good at the account management side, not at the hunting side, the sales side. And then actually, a lot of people think what they are good at is not actually, it's just they haven't tapped into what they could be good at. And what I got from your
Yeah.
assessment is it can uncover things about someone that they might not be aware of and they might not be telling you at interview, right?
Absolutely, because we are notoriously bad we're notoriously bad at selling ourselves, whether it be on CVs. I mean, Americans are so much more advanced at being able to write down absolutely everything that they've done and how that has helped people. and actually understanding the economics of their job role and how it positively impacts their company.
Mm.
We're not very good at this. We're absolutely terrible. So a lot of the job that we have to do is uncover some of these traits from people that's not necessarily on their CV, not necessarily on their LinkedIn profile, so that we can then understand what really makes them good at their job rather than just what we see on the CV. I mean, I teach recruiters generally to, they're writing a cover letter or a front sheet. None of the stuff that should be on that front sheet should be copied and pasted from the CV.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should be written in their own words and how they've used those skills, those behaviors to then positively impact clients. When I hired, that's what I wanted.
Yes. Yes.
I don't,
100%.
the skill sets, it's a bit like whatever your skill sets are and the jargon is in your industry. It's a bit like us sending a recruit or you sending a recruiter's profile going, makes calls, goes on client meetings, understands Bullhorn, Vincere, whatever CRM they've got. Lots of other CRMs are available. I'm not affiliated to any. And that's not necessarily worked jobs. That's fine. But what did they do with that, with those
Yes.
skills? Tell me about those skills. What personality do they bring into that? That's what I really want to know, because that's what makes my life easier as a billing manager.
It's going deeper, isn't it, into the uncovering behind that person. I love the fact that what you do also covers that onboarding, because so many companies, and I believe too many companies will be listening to this and they will know, if they're completely honest with themselves, that they wasted time and resources on people maybe who weren't right, or they weren't able to onboard them in a way to make them successful. So I genuinely I'm a massive advocate for what you're doing. I get asked to help companies with this all the time, and it's not something I like doing. I'm not a natural trainer. So great to know you and send people your way. I know how busy you are anyway. I mean, on
Yeah,
that, I
no
mean,
problem.
one thing, because we do have to wrap up, which I'm really sad about because I could talk to you all day. But one thing that I'm always curious to know, and I hope you don't mind me asking this because it is sensitive, I always like to get behind the professional persona of the person.
Yeah, of course.
And I know that you've had a really tough time recently with health, and
Yeah.
yet you managed to show up on LinkedIn, podcasts like this with positive energy, massive kind of great outlook. How do you do that?
That is the $1 million question. Yeah, I mean, I've been really upfront and honest about it. So, I mean, you can probably see that I've got my kind of scar that runs from there to there. Yeah, I found a lump in my neck. Yeah, probably around this time last year, and turned out to be cancer. Luckily, a low grade cancer that is easily treatable, but it wasn't necessarily easily treatable years ago. And to be honest, having gone through that pain, so I've had 4 operations. So I had both my tonsils removed under general anesthetic. I've had my neck opened up. I've had wisdom teeth taken out to make radiotherapy easier, and a robot camera shoved down my throat to remove any unwanted tissue. And to be honest, I think that we all have our mental health struggles. I totally, I'm not exempt. I have had depression. We all have these things. And it's about having the right support network around you that gets you through. And I'm really fortunate that my wife, my friends, my family are all amazing people and people that I can trust with absolutely everything. And so, number one, having that infinite purpose professionally is important. And I think, like I say, wanting to make recruitment a better place. And even as you were saying, the stuff around hiring the right people, I know what it's like to be the wrong person hired for a particular market. I don't want anyone else to suffer that. So for me, if I can do it in a positive way and rather lean on what's been positive rather than I go through days where I go, oh my God, woe is me. Even last night, I was really suffering from overwhelm. And so even being able to go for a walk or play 9 holes of golf or, going for a run previously, I haven't started to go for those yet because I still feel a bit uncomfortable. I don't know, because I've got a bit of pain here. There's lots of things that people can do to look after themselves. And I've noticed that people don't necessarily look after themselves enough. And even if there's a room to talk, I'm more than happy to talk to people about stuff like that. So funny enough, I talk a lot about my cancer journey on Instagram and LinkedIn. And funny enough, people have come to me and said, I'm on a similar journey, but I haven't felt comfortable to talk about it. And having conversations and understanding where people come from allows people to have a much easier time of things. So that's generally how I go about things. But look, it's easy, it's hard, all at the same time.
Thank you for sharing that, because I believe that not enough people are open about the bad stuff that goes on in their life. And I genuinely feel that you are one of those inspirational people. I think you're probably the only person who within a week of speaking to us, like, let's get you on the podcast. And I really believe that there are some people who are put on this earth to inspire and help others in whatever form. And you're definitely one of those people. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing
Well,
that.
no, I mean, I struggle with that. in all honesty, I'm just someone that's been having to go through a few hoops at the moment. And
Yeah.
if people are going through those same hoops, it's about learning how to go through that. I guess that's my personal life and my professional life, that everyone's got hoops to go through, and how you go through them is important, whether it's recruitment hoops, whether it's personal journey hoops, whatever that looks like.
The hoops are always there. The
Yeah, the
hoops are
hoops are
always
always
there.
there, and you're never going to get rid of them. It's more a case of how small do you make those hoops? How,
Yeah.
how easy do you make it to go through? And sometimes, I don't make it easy for myself to go through those hoops. My chip on my shoulder that I was talking about earlier is someone tells me from time to time that I'm not good enough for what I do, or, oh, you're going to get found out eventually, because we all have them. But it's about how you realize that actually what you do makes sense to the world. And I'm slowly starting to realize that. Sometimes I won't. And my wife will tell you that I can be miserable. But most of the time, it's trying to really help people. And in all honesty, it can also expend a lot of mental energy doing it from 9 to 5, that you just want to chill out at night. And that's
Yeah.
fine. You can do that. And it's up to
Yeah.
you.
No, that's so true. And what you said about having the right people around you and all those things are things that I preach daily. And you do learn a lot more about it. The hoops that are always there as you get older. But thank you so much for your wisdom. And thank you for coming on here. And I know that people are going to want to reach out to you. So for those listeners who do want to reach out to Bobby, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, totally. I think best way, to be honest, I'm fairly present on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We do have an Instagram. It's Elevate Learning on Instagram. But yeah, speaking to me via LinkedIn, or certainly we've got elevatelearning.co, which is our webpage where you can get a bit of an idea of what we do. Just by all means, I should really have these things. These are great, by the way, that you've put on
Yeah.
yours.
It's a special thing that I got actually from one of my coaches, like Warmly app that you can put onto I'll send anyone I'll send it to.
Yeah,
But
they're
yeah,
really
it's
good.
really
Yeah,
good.
they're
Thank you
awesome.
very much. Thank you. Well, thanks again. And yeah, I look forward to following you very closely, what you're doing next, and good luck.
No worries. Thanks a lot.